How long have you been living in Memphis?
I was born here, and I lived in Florida for a while, and then we had plans to move to Atlanta, but then came back during the pandemic, and
Mm,
so we've been here since 2020.
okay.
Yeah, and so now we're kind of figuring it out.
Yeah, I lived in Orlando for
Oh, really?
probably a year or so. Where about in Florida were
Okay.
you?
I was in Gainesville, which is just like an hour and a half or so
Oh,
north of
hell yeah, dude, I
Orlando.
love Gainesville. Have you ever been to the Fest?
I have been to Fest. Fest is great.
My boy,
Yeah.
yes,
No,
fuck yeah.
I
I've played the Fest like 5 years straight.
have you really?
Yeah, so I
Oh
played
man, that's awesome.
yeah, I played in this band called Big Awesome and another band called
Yeah,
Henrietta. Who was
that's
from
amazing.
yeah, that's what years did you go?
I was there from so we left in 2020 and I got there in maybe 2016, 2017.
Yeah, I definitely was probably one of those years.
That's amazing. So one of the years we saw Superchunk headlines and we saw Superchunk, and another year I think Cursive was headlining.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, but Gainesville is awesome. It's like there aren't a lot of cool places in Florida, to be honest, but Gainesville is one of them. It's just such a cool place.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, no, I agree. Uh, I think it was Fest 11 was my first one that I
Okay.
played,
Yeah.
and yeah, that was so fun. The Menzingers always like headline as well,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. So, the bands that you play in, are they pop punk or?
they were like punk math kind of stuff, um,
Yeah,
more just like punk rock kind of stuff. I'll send you
that's
some
awesome.
links later, but
Yeah, please do. That would be awesome.
yeah, it was a lot of fun doing those. It's crazy. I played literally like 5 years straight at one
That's
point,
amazing.
so it's funny that
Yeah, it's so funny. Like the city basically shuts down for Fest, and the locals. I mean, they're split. The people who go to Fest love it. Everybody else is like fucking Fest.
yeah, I
It's
know.
like it's such a big festival for such a tiny city that it takes over the whole town for the 3 days. So it's
Yeah.
pretty crazy.
It's always fun for me because like after a set, people come up to me afterwards the next day and be like, "Yo, that was a sick set." And I was like, "Fuck yeah, this is a cool community of
Yeah,
people." So,
it's a great community. Yeah, it's very cool
and
for
what
sure.
was what's that Cuban place? Boca.
Oh, Boca.
Gosh, what is it?
Okay, there's Boca Fiesta,
Yeah,
that's the Mexican place,
yeah.
mouth party,
What's the good
and then
Cuban
the Cuban
place?
place is Flacos.
Flacos, dude. Shout
Flacos
out
is so
Flacos,
good.
dude.
Shout out Flacos. That place is incredible.
Fuck yeah, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I ate Flacos all the time. So good.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I'm dreaming about it now.
yeah. So tell me a bit about how you got into photography. You've been doing some really good work lately.
Oh, thank you. So I got into photography. I was probably like 14 or so. My mom had a film Nikon N80, and it was just kind of sitting around the house. And so I just, it was a film camera, and so I just started taking photos with that, and had no idea what I was doing. This was like the internet was still a pretty young thing. It sounded like I was calling the internet a pretty young thing. The internet was still a relatively young invention, and yeah, so my first role, I remember I like just took a bunch of weird experimental stuff around the house, and I took it to Target to get developed, and this it was so bad that the like photo tech just wrote a question mark on it and asked my mom if it was intentional, because it was a bunch of like zoom ins on objects and stuff, like very like trippy but all underexposed, just really nightmarish, horrible stuff. So yeah, that's when I got into it, and then did that for a few years, shooting on a film camera, and
Do you remember what film
uh,
camera?
yeah, Nikon N80,
Cool.
with like one of those. It wasn't the kit lens. My mom had gotten like the 17 to 200, like the monster do it all lens.
Yeah.
It was probably like a 4.5 to 5.7 or something. And I remember taking it on a trip to Chicago, and my mom was like super nice and super supportive. And she was like, I think she bought me like a 12 pack or something of film. And I was like taking pictures all over the city. And I remember like telling myself, like, if all of these pictures suck, I'm just going to stop this hobby, because it's like, I felt bad. My mom was like paying to get this stuff developed. And I was like, if all of these blow, I'm just going to quit. And I remember getting those photos back and going through them all. And I had one photo in there I really liked. I don't even remember how I I don't think I even had a polarizer at that point. Maybe I did, but it was like a picture of one of the buildings downtown with like and I guess through the polarizer I'd gotten the sky to be pretty black and the building was kind of like lighter and it was like a striking image to me and that was I was like okay I'm gonna keep doing this yeah so
Yeah.
glad I did.
No, that's cool. It reminds me of your Rico stuff, the kind of like
Yeah,
fucked up fuckery of it. That stuff is really cool,
yeah,
by the way. I saw that on Threads.
thanks. Yeah, I love experimenting with stuff. When I got back into photography about a year or two ago, I got a few point and shoot cameras and just messing around because like I love that. Uh, the Ricoh is awesome, but I do love that like early 2000s like digital look, low res stuff. And so like I love experimenting with things like that. I don't do it enough, but the Ricoh is fun. Just kind of like I've got it right here. Just like I mean, it's really messed up, but just kind of like
Yeah.
circuit bending this and getting some cool
What
results.
happened? Like, what did you do to it?
So my wife bought this when we were living in Florida. This is before they exploded in price. Like this is the Ricoh 2, and back then Ricos were like pretty inexpensive. And she was like, "Yeah, people say you can get this camera and it's like pretty cool results." And she just wanted to have a shooting experience that wasn't on her phone. And so we have this, and we left it in our glove box in our car for like 6 years. And so that's not good for a camera. And so it's like it's pretty just messed up now. And then through circuit bending it, I can't say that I've like done it any favors. But yeah, so now like I mean the back is off, but that was intentional. That was for me, and it's yeah it's but I feel like I'm getting some fun results from it.
No, that's cool.
Getting a yeah.
Does it still do video?
Yeah, it does. And when I've been circuit bending it, I've accidentally like touched something that has forced it to jump into video. I'm not really sure what I'm doing. Like I'm not an electrical engineer at all.
Yeah.
So I do want to do some like circuit bending while taking video because it is super cool. Like it's yeah, it's just such kind of like a crazy trippy experience.
Mm. Yeah. That's really interesting. Um, it begs the question though, like to you, what makes a good photograph?
That's a really good question. For me, I I care about color a lot. I think the thing that got me back into photography was color. And so I want a number of complementary colors going on. I think that's the thing that initially interests me in a photo is if there's something interesting with color going on. And then as far as subject matter, for like the stuff that I'm interested in, I just want to play with light. I don't like for me, I don't care about the subject as much as long as I can do something interesting with light. And so I think that has led me to shooting a lot of abandoned buildings because you can use like empty windows, empty doorways, light shining through or not shining through those things. You can just manipulate light in a lot of ways. That can be like create cool like tension or balance or things like that. But I guess like the way that I look at photography, I think more recently I've been approaching it like since got back into it, 2 years ago or so. I've been approaching it more from kind of like an abstract expressionist lens, I guess. Like I'm for me, I think I'm less interested in like subject matter than like color, balance, tension, line, things like that. Like uh, yeah, I'm looking at more of kind of like those kind of like fundamental like abstract things
Did you go to
than
like art
like
school at all, or
no,
school
I
for
did an
photography?
MFA. I did an MFA in writing.
Writing.
But I no, I never went to art school. But I've always been friends with artists, and I've always been around artists, and I've always loved art. And yeah, so I think I've just always kind of been around that. My sister's an artist as well, and so I think I've just kind of grown up around that, and kind of constantly have been around artists and musicians. And so you just kind of like pick things up through osmosis and conversations and reading books they recommend
Right.
and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. So, do you have any particular projects like specifically that you're working on, or how do you go about like making projects, or do you even do projects per se? Do you just kind of make work and then look at it kind of later on and compile everything together, or how do you do
That
it?
is such a good question. Yeah, like in the begin, I think it's like it's real. I love people who come up with projects. Like you go to a museum and you see their artist statement, and they're like, "I set out to do this thing, and then I did it." And you're like, "Wow!" what a cool life you have. Like just
Hmm.
decide you're going to do something and then do that thing, and then the thing is there, and then people come to your museum and view that thing. That's never worked for me. Like as soon as I set up what a project is going to be about, I tend to I feel like I never get the results I want to get. And then what I do is like I feel like creating the kind of parameters of the project puts blinders on me, and it prevents me from seeing like other possibilities and other things that I could be doing. And so yeah, I don't really set out to do projects. It's more like I just go out to, I'm just trying to explore and I'm trying to do something new. I'm trying to do something that kind of like surprises me. If I take a picture and I look at it, and it's usually just through experimentation and messing around and trying new things. And if I see something that I'm like, whoa, that's cool, then I like that's kind of like just a litmus test for me. And then over time, I'll go back and, like you said, I kind of like I'm like, well, this kind of body of work feels like this, and I can talk about what I was going through at that time and things like that. But then there are things like the Rico, the sort of circuit bending stuff, where that feels like kind of a project in and of itself. And it was funny yesterday, like when I started messing around with this, I was like, this feels the pictures feel really nostalgic and really dreamy. And so I was like, I'm going to drive to my childhood home, which is about 40 minutes away or so. So I'm going to drive to my childhood home and take pictures on that street and make it kind of like this nostalgic thing. And then I got there and the camera just died. It's just like, it's like, fuck. So I drove all the way back home and charged the battery. And then I was like, I'm just going to do stuff around my house. And so I don't know. That's just one of those like coincidental things where I set out to do a project and like just like happenstance fucked it up. But I think I do like with things like that. I like I would like to set out and kind of do more projects that are a bit more intentional because I think that's fun. But it just so far it hasn't really worked out for me.
Yeah, I mean, personally, for my work, I never really set out to do projects. I'm kind of the same
Yeah,
way as you. It's always kind of like after the fact when I compile a bunch of work that I think is good, and then I kind of look at it and be like, there's something here. Start noticing
yeah,
something.
absolutely.
Yeah, I start noticing something that I didn't see before, or I find
Yeah,
a theme within it. So yeah, I do like fall in line with that.
yeah. No, yeah, no. That's exactly it. Like I see artists who like I don't know. Like sometimes I wonder if like if having too much of an idea at the outset can really limit you and like prevent you from seeing other possibilities. And I don't know. I just yeah, hasn't really worked for me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It does kind of put guardrails on terms of like being open to other things, but it kind of keeps you focused at the same time. So it's kind of like a balance, like in everything, I suppose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um.
Sorry, that's my dog. I don't know if you can hear her
Yeah.
whining,
What kind of
but
dog do you have?
her name is Patty Mayonnaise, and she is just kind of a mix of a bunch of stuff. She's like
That's a great name.
pit and boxer and golden retriever and like
Oh, cool.
40 other things.
Wait. So tell me about
Yeah.
the name. That was kind of Patty
Patty
Mayonnaise.
Mayonnaise, yeah,
Yeah.
it's from Doug, which is like a
Oh
cartoon
yeah,
from the
true.
90s. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, she just when we got her, she just kind of had Patty Mayonnaise vibes, and so yeah, it's Doug.
Funny.
Yeah,
Cool. So let's see. Let's
it's like the most aggravatingly millennial name I could come up with.
I'm about it. My so
if there are any if there are any Gen Zers watching, they're like, fuck this guy.
so I grew up with golden retrievers, and my dad is
Yeah,
a musician. I'm a obviously musician as well, but he plays
cool. Yeah, yeah,
drums.
yeah.
So we would always name
Awesome,
our pets after like drum companies. So
awesome.
our first golden retriever,
Tama,
our first
Pearl,
yeah, our first golden retriever was Zildjian,
amazing.
and
Yeah,
then second golden was Sabian. We named our cat Remo.
dude, those are good ones.
They're
Those are
great
good.
fucking pet
Yeah,
names.
because I feel like Pearl is the obvious choice
That's a great
because
name
it's
too.
it's pretty, but Zildjian is so good. Like
The
that's yeah,
gold, the
underrated name for
golden,
sure.
like the
Yeah,
symbol. Yeah,
exact. That's really good.
yeah,
That's really good. I love it.
yeah. He was a good boy. Um, are you heavy-handed in your editing by chance, or is it kind of just like
No.
straight out of?
Um, when I'm editing stuff, I like my favorite thing in the world is just to take a picture and it's good out of camera. Like that's the best. It doesn't happen often, but like that's my favorite. Like I just don't I know that there's some photographers and of course digital artists who get the thrill out of creating things via software. I'm just not that way. I just don't get that sense of excitement. Like I for me, what makes me excited is to do everything on location, all the lighting and everything. And then in the editing stage, I mean, I'll like obviously crop. I will do like some like geometry correction and stuff. Like I will adjust colors. Like colors are so important to me. Like if you know, and also I'm kind of like limited with the palette of gels that come in like a gel pack. And so, you know, you have red and orange, but you don't really have like a salmon colored.
I've
And
never
so
used
they're
those.
oh, it's cool. It's in the other room, but it's like, yeah, you get a pack of like 50 of these little like colored gels. And there's like I mean, there's just not every color. And so, like in Photoshop, I'd be like, okay, I don't want this to be striking red. I want it to be more kind of like a cooler salmon. And so, like, I'll adjust hue and things like that. And then, you know, if there's like annoying things in the picture, like if there's like a power line that messes with the composition, I'll take that out. But, you know, I'm not doing a ton in Photoshop if I can help it. There are some times where like I, I mean, maybe like 3 times in the last couple of years where I've done like a composite picture where I'm just like, I need this background and I need this foreground.
Mm,
But typically, I'm not doing a lot of Photoshop work, and it's not as I don't want to come off as like elitist or like a purist or anything. Like for me, like I think it really is just like you've got to do whatever excites you. And yeah, I'm also just not that great in Photoshop. You know, I see people who memorize all these steps and all these processes and everything, and they can do cool stuff. And I'm
yeah.
just like, I hate memorizing stuff.
I
You
think
know,
I think there
I
is
don't
I
want to
think
do
there
that.
is one cool thing in Photoshop now. Have you ever like messed around with the generative fill feature, especially for
Yeah,
like
I
for
have.
example, like
Yeah,
when like if you want to expand a little bit more space in the, it
yeah.
works really interesting from my experience,
It
anyways.
does. I've done that a couple times. There've been a couple. Yeah, there's one in particular I'm thinking of that I did where it just there wasn't enough foreground, and so I added just like like if the photo's like this big, it was like that much foreground in the front just to give some balance. But it's crazy. I mean, it is, and it's one of those things where like there's so many like ethical concerns about AI as well. It's one of those things, and I'm like, yeah, I feel like my personal philosophy on it is changing all the time. But yeah, I mean, it's wild what you can do in Photoshop with AI stuff for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, I don't ever use it for, I mean, unless I'm doing personally like graphic illustration kind of stuff where I need more
Yeah,
textural things because I do kind of stuff like that. But yeah, I'm right there with
that's
you.
cool. Yeah, yeah, it's probably better at things like that for sure. Like they advertise it as like like add a zebra right here, and then like you do it, and it's just the worst thing you've ever seen. And like whatever, it's adding a zebra. Like
Yeah,
how much
no,
could you ask for? But
it's so
the
comical.
textural stuff, I'm sure, is better. Yeah, it really is. It's
Well, and
wild.
especially if you want
Yeah,
to like work in layers and stuff, because in I mean in Lightroom you're able to do somewhat kind of like that, but
yeah,
Photoshop is definitely more for like heavy-handed kind of like work like that. Mm.
yeah, definitely.
What kind of camera do you use most of the time?
I use a Canon R5.
R5. Okay.
Yeah, when I got back into this a couple of years ago, I was like, I'd always wanted, when I was a kid, I was shooting on a Nikon. Like I did a Nikon N80. And then when I was like 15 or 16, I got a Nikon D90. I'm pretty sure it was the D90. Um, and I remember shooting whenever I would see like friends or the photographer shooting with the Canon, I just love the colors that come out of it. And I was so jealous of Canon shooters. And I know that like when I got back into it a couple years ago, the landscape has changed completely. Now it's like mostly like people are diehard about Sony and Fuji. And yeah, I just did research, and I mean, I feel like I would have been happy on Sony or Fuji. Like to me, it's like I feel like I'm pretty like brand agnostic. I don't really like
Mm.
care that much, but I like the look coming out of a Canon, and I was like, I don't want to
Yeah,
overthink this too
I
much. I knew I
used
wanted a mirrorless, and
yeah, I used a Canon 5D Mark II for like years before I made a move to Fuji
yeah,
because I shoot mainly with
nice,
actually I use this like a M262.
nice,
I
yeah,
love it. I love it because
that's
it's
beautiful. Yeah,
the battery lasts like forever on this thing.
does it really?
Literally, like
That's
I
awesome.
haven't, I shoot with this every few days. Let's see what the battery's at.
Yeah,
It's at 90% still. I haven't charged it in days. And
that's crazy.
but I love it because there's no live view, there's no video on it.
Yeah,
It's all
yeah,
manual. It has like a nice weight to it, so it's like I don't know. It feels like a
yeah,
tool. It doesn't feel like a toy. Because I used to have
yeah,
an
for
X. I used
sure.
to have an
Yeah,
X100V for a while.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Great
You didn't
camera.
like it?
It just felt too much like a toy to me. It doesn't feel like a
Okay.
tool. but the quality of the
Yeah,
images were great. The raw files were able
yeah,
to have a lot of flexibility, but it
sure,
just didn't it
sure.
just didn't inspire me to pick up the camera and go shoot like this does. And I think
That's
that's pretty
interesting.
important in a
Yeah,
camera for me at
yeah,
least.
for sure. Yeah, definitely. No, I mean that's it. Like I always kind of like roll my eyes at like the brand debates that pop up on threads every hour and a half.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is just like whatever makes you happy. Like it doesn't matter. Like and like the whole quality thing. It's like shooting with this like Rico and like fucking up the images. For me, it's just like it's just like I don't know. I mean, like it can be whatever you make it to be. The images don't have to be good. It doesn't have to be high quality.
Yeah, I
I think
mean,
for
look
me,
at your
like I
Rico.
wanted yeah, I know exactly. Like the, yeah, it's horrible. Like when I was so I tried to I was out of photography for a long time. I had shot high school senior portraits and weddings, and it burned me out completely. And I didn't pick up a camera for like a decade. But kind of during that period, I was like I was so attracted to like the quality you would get from large format film cameras. And so I really wanted, a full frame digital, but back then they were even more expensive. I mean, this was in probably 2010. And I mean, I would like, I was like student teaching at the time. I had zero money. And so at one point I did buy, like I bought on eBay a Calumet, like large format, uh, was it a 4x5 or an 8x10? There's a big difference, but I think it was a 4x5. And I really wanted to love that camera, but it's just the shooting experience sucks. Like it's so heavy and it's so awful to shoot with, and I hated it. And so I ended up selling it and still not shooting for another like 6 or 7 years. And then eventually, like I got a better job and could like save up and get like a full frame camera and everything. And it wasn't just the camera that got me out of photography, but
Mm.
I knew I wanted like a full frame. And then the mirrorless technology is crazy.
So
Like
so
I
here's a
love it.
question. Do you notice a
Yeah.
difference between shooting full frame and crop?
Um, that's a really good question. Like I've seen some of those comparisons, the side by side comparisons, and I feel like sometimes I can tell and sometimes I can't.
Yeah, for me, I
I
feel like there's more. I call it breath. I feel like there's more breath in the photo.
yeah.
It's like comparing like
Yeah, that's a really good way of saying it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's accurate, but like it's like
It's like I think also like the lenses that you use. It's like I remember like shooting weddings and stuff and shooting a crop sensor and feeling so hemmed in. It's like you were saying like breath. And then my boss had a full frame and seeing that was just like, oh my God, this is what I want to do.
yeah, it's like
It's like,
stepping up.
yeah,
It's like stepping up from crop frame to like medium format. It's like
yeah, exactly. So maybe to answer your question, I can definitely tell a difference in the shooting experience. In the output, sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. I think it depends.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
What was it about weddings that you didn't like?
everything. I hate
Yeah, same.
it.
I've
Like,
only shot one wedding and I'll never do it again.
really?
I just it's not my thing.
I'm just no, me neither. Like you're probably like tell me if you're the same way, but like I just when I'm shooting, I like to be alone. I'm an extroverted person, but when I'm like shooting, I I just don't like people around. I just don't like collaborators really. Like and sometimes my wife will come along and shoot with me or my sister, or like friends, and that can be super fun. But I think I just don't like feeling rushed.
Yeah.
And like for my thing, like I will spend an hour on a single shot, just like messing with lighting, and I don't
Mm.
want to feel like I'm wasting anybody's time or making them late for anything. I just like to just like take my time. And with weddings, it was just like, man, you're on that schedule and you're so rushed. And I just don't like shooting people. I don't know how to pose
Dude,
people.
same.
Like
That's my thing. Like
it's horrible.
Gary Winogrand talks about this. Are you familiar with his work? And
No, I'm not.
yeah, Gary Winogrand is one of my favorites, like street photographers. He compares like
Yeah.
that of like photographing people and like posing and stuff as like more illustration kind of work versus
Oh, that's
actual
cool.
photography of, in the moment kind of thing and experimentation.
Yeah.
But yeah, he makes an interesting comparison between that and like illustration, which I found interesting.
Yeah. That's cool. I mean, there are like portrait photographers who do amazing work. It's
Sure.
so artistic. But like, and there are wedding photographers who are really good. But it's like, man, I mean, most of the jobs you get, you're just doing like people see the same photos that everybody else is seeing on Instagram or Pinterest, and they want that again. And it's just, it was draining. It was so draining.
Yeah.
And I was doing that at the same time that I was shooting high school senior portraits, and just together, I was like, Lot photography. Like, this is the worst job ever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I'm totally agreeing with you. Like, my style as well is to just kind of go out and meander. I love, like, that's
Yeah.
the only time where I feel like meandering aimlessly by yourself is, for me, is when you get good stuff. And
Yes.
that's
Totally.
it's such a, like, that's my drug. It's like just
Yeah.
going out and just seeing what I can
Do you
find.
typically are you walking around or driving around or
Uh,
commuting some
I
other way?
enjoy being able to walk around, but sometimes when I'm like driving, I'll
Yeah.
definitely like scope out areas and park and get out. Especially when I'm on the interstate. That's the worst is when you're
Yeah.
passing something and you can't stop because you're going
Dude.
70
Yeah.
and
Yeah, it's
yeah,
terrible.
yeah.
Yeah, it happens all the time. There was actually, uh, I mean, I drive around in Arkansas all the time, and I kept seeing this one billboard that was like, it was three wooden panels. It's a really old billboard, and one of the panels was removed, so you could see the trees behind it. And I passed it a bunch of times, and but I was always going like 70, and so I was like, my wife wanted to come shoot me with me once, and I was like, well, let's go find this billboard. I know exactly where it is. We'll stop and take some pictures there. And we could not find this thing. And I don't know if it had been torn down in the interim or what, but it's like one of those like driving past things. I'm like, maybe I entered some alternate dimension every time, but I have not been able to find this billboard since.
It's really funny. It makes
And
me
this is not like an area that's like people are renovating constantly. This is like a really like depressed area of Arkansas where like nothing is being built. Like I don't know what happened to this thing. It's a mystery. Yeah.
it makes me think about like just street photography in general or just photography. Um, when you pass something like as you're passing it and you go and try to photograph it the next day, sometimes it's not even there anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like making sure
Yeah.
that you see that and take the opportunity to get that thing
Yeah.
before it's gone. Yeah. But a
It's
billboard
true.
though, how do you?
Yeah, I know. I mean, the stuff that I shoot is typically like abandoned places and
Yeah.
stuff. Like I don't have to be very quick with it,
Yeah.
and that's good because I've never been like a quick photographer. Like I'm never the sort of photographer who's at the right place at the right time, and like
Mm.
I just have no like the street photography. I just don't have that sensibility at all. Like
See,
I
I
never
I
have a
enjoy
camera
that.
on me. I know, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I know that you do. Like you have that sensibility, and I have my iPhone on me when I'm shooting, but I never have my camera with me, and it's because like I never, I'm never thinking, oh, get my camera out because I always miss it, and so for me, I'm just like I need to find a building that's just sitting there, no one's around.
Yeah.
Like I'm so slow at it. Like
No, that's
yeah,
cool though. I would like to explore more of that kind of stuff, more methodical. I mean, I have,
yeah,
but I just kind of prefer the whole meandering process. I don't know why.
yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I just kind of drive around for sometimes hours, just like in the country and listening to music
And it's
and
usually when you're
yeah,
by yourself that the thing comes out.
yeah.
There's something
No,
odd
it's true.
about that.
Yeah, no, it's true. Um, yeah,
Any crazy stories
yeah.
about your ventures?
Oh man,
What's
yeah. I mean, I've gotten like the cops called on me a couple times. Only gotten the pat down once, but it's funny because like they're like, okay, we're gonna run your license, and then they do, and like you can hear them on their little like
uh,
intercom, and both times the dispatchers come back and be like, it's not expired. And I'm like, can you just listen to the ID and tell you know? And they're just like, okay, like you're good. But the craziest thing that happened, I was shooting in Tennessee. There's a town right north of Memphis called Millington, and right above that, I was driving on this road along the river. It's like really winding road. It's like on this like tall bluff, um, like kind of looking over the Mississippi, and I found this totally dilapidated. The two properties across the road from each other. There was a house that was dilapidated, and there was a mobile home on the other side of the street. And so I parked at the house, walked across the street to the mobile home, started setting up my lights. And this mobile home was there was a tree growing up through the roof. There was so much like foliage in front of the door you couldn't even get in. All the windows are busted out. I mean, it was obviously no one lived there. My personal rule is like if I see no trespassing signs, I don't go on the property. I've broken that rule a couple of times because the property was really cool, but typically I follow that rule. But I was like, nobody's living here, nobody's around, it's fine. So I'm setting up my lights, and in my periphery, I see a guy standing like 30 feet to my left, and it scares the shit out of me. Like I startled, and I was just like, I was like, oh, I didn't see you standing there. And he's probably 60. He's got like a long, scraggly white beard. It's warm outside, but he's wearing these like big pink earmuffs and like this like tattered gray hoodie and gym shorts. And I'm thinking like he may be mentally unwell. I'm not sure. And so I was like, I didn't see you standing there. And he was said really quietly, he's like, my mother lives here. And I was like, excuse me? And he was like, my mother lives here. And I was like, in this mobile home with a tree growing through it and the door busted out and everything. And he just kind of like nods. And I was like, yeah, I was just going to take some pictures of the outside, if that's okay with you. Like, if not, I can just take my stuff and go. And he like doesn't say anything for a while. And so I'm just kind of like, moving the light, saying like, okay, if he like tells me to go, I'll go. But, maybe he's just going to stand here and then walk away. And so I'm kind of like moving some lights around for a second. And then he tells me to leave and again tells me that his mother lives here. And I was just like, no. So I scrammed. I went to the other side of the street and I'm shooting that property. And it's a little bit windy that night. Like the wind is like intermittent. And, but across the road, I swear to God, I kept hearing somebody walking around, like in the bushes and stuff. And I think this guy was like walking around and watching
I'm
me. And
sure.
I don't know. Like I said, he may have been mentally unwell. I'm not totally sure, but that's the only time that I was like legitimately like pretty freaked out.
Yeah, I would be freaked out as well. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty spooky. Yeah, but then other times, I mean, there's a lot of properties that are scary, like that are just like full of mold, full of old clothes, full of like broken picture frames and things, and you're not sure why the people have left. I mean, it's the South; it's scary anyways. But
Yeah.
it's yeah, yeah. There have been a couple of spooky properties like that where like I'll think I hear something, and but yeah, seeing that guy was the spookiest for sure.
Do you have a favorite area that you like to revisit every now and then?
I So the whole area I live in around Memphis, like up and down the Mississippi, is like the Mississippi River Delta, and it's like really incredible farmland because it's extremely flat and very fertile, and that entire area is great. I just really kind of respond to these like vast flat landscapes, and I'm trying to get out in December or January. I'm gonna take a trip to I think I'm gonna take a trip to Oklahoma or Kansas and just drive around for like a week or so and shoot there. But yeah, I love this the kind of like this the Mississippi River Delta is just so great. And I've typically had better luck in Arkansas than in Mississippi or Tennessee. But yeah, now the problem is like because I'm like exploring the city in like kind of like concentric circles. I have to drive farther and farther out to get new stuff, and so now I think I've got to drive like at least like an hour to find anything new. Which Memphis isn't a city with a lot of traffic, and so an hour is like a pretty far
You
drive.
should check
Like if I were
out.
living some,
Have you ever made your way out to like North Carolina?
I've only been to North Carolina once. I have an uncle who lives in Raleigh,
Okay.
but no, what area are you thinking of?
Oh, I just think because I'm always traveling to like New Jersey. So
Yeah.
so my dad lives in like Charlotte area.
Oh,
So
cool.
so
Yeah.
I drive
Mm.
from like Savannah, Georgia up to Charlotte and then Charlotte all the way through New Jersey. So I always find
Yeah.
like North Carolina, like even all the way up to like Virginia area. There's always some interesting
Yeah.
stuff there because it's all,
That's
it's still the
awesome.
South, but it's definitely something I think you would definitely enjoy.
Yeah, I want to travel more. Like and a lot of it is kind of contingent on like some chronic illness stuff. But like I work remotely, and so like the plan is just to like like grab a motel somewhere in like Kansas, and then
Mm,
like work from Starbucks during the day, and then go around in the afternoon and shoot. But yeah, just kind of making the time.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you feel comfortable sharing a bit about what you were telling me the other day. You had like some sort of like flare up where you had to like kind of delay, unfortunately,
Yeah.
but it was fine.
No,
But
sure. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
curious.
And thank you for being so flexible
Yeah,
also with the interview.
yeah, I don't mind. So I have a bunch of time this week. So
Okay, cool. Yeah, I won't go too deep into it, but yeah, I have a chronic illness called chronic fatigue syndrome, and I take some medication to treat the symptoms, and it's a year and a half ago, I was basically bedridden for like quite a long time, like from like 2021 to 2023, like part of 2023, I was in a bad way. And then with like some medicines that I got on, I'm definitely have a much better quality of life.
Mm.
But yeah, I'll still have flare ups where I'll have this really intense brain fog. I'll have this like awful fatigue, this like really just pervasive fatigue that prevents me from doing things, and just like some other symptoms, like just like weird. It's just like it's fucked up my nervous system, and so I'll just have like these really bizarre symptoms. And most doctors are not trained in this, and so it's I'm kind of relying on Reddit to figure a lot of things out, which is not what you want to do. But yeah, so I had a flare up last week, and I'm still kind of like getting over that. I still have some brain fog and stuff, but it's I've learned to like mostly deal with it. So it's yeah, it's not definitely not as bad as it was. I feel very thankful for where I am now.
I'm just curious, like what's your diet? What do you eat during the day? Like how do you
Yeah, so I it was funny like when I was vegetarian for 5 years, and then in the course of this illness, I reintroduced fish to see if that would help. And it did give me like a boost of energy for a bit, and so I've kept eating meat just because I think extra protein is good for me. I like whenever I'm like if I ever like beat this thing and I'm like well again, I'll probably go back to being vegetarian. But yeah, I eat lean meats and fruits and veggies and things. I try to eat like a healthy diet. It doesn't always work. It's Halloween season right now, so I've been eating a shit ton of candy, which probably not good for me. But yeah, so
Mm, very interesting. Um,
yeah.
let's take a shift here. Let's look at some pictures because I do have
Hmm.
a bunch here lined
Yeah,
up.
let's go. Sweet.
We'll kind of just kind of roll
Yeah,
through
yeah.
this.
No.
So, first off, who's this figure here?
So that is those are actually prop arms that I use a lot.
Oh,
I
prop
got
arms.
Yeah, so there's this theater company. I think they're based in Las Vegas. They do props for haunted houses
Uh,
and like movies and stuff. And so I can find the link here and send it to you. But
sure.
yeah, they model like limbs and bodies off of like people who just work at this place. And these arms are called Joe's arms because they're literally modeled after a dude who works there named Joe. And yeah, they come in either like unbloodied or bloodied, and I got the unbloodied. And so yeah, I just got basically like a big boom like stand for like lights, and got ace bandages and tied them up there. And I'll take those around, and I've also got a pair of like legs that I use as well. It's basically how I can get like creepy photos of people without having to deal with people.
Yeah, no,
It's like the best
for sure.
because people cannot tell that they're not real.
Yeah, no, I thought you brought someone with you or something, like your
Yeah,
partner.
I think most people do, but like I honestly have no idea how I would have like gotten that pose unless there was like a tree there and they were like dangling down from it or something.
Yeah,
But
because I mean, it looks kind of natural. I noticed that this hand looks kind of funky, but
yeah, like when the light hits it a certain way, it is shiny in a very like rubbery way, and so you've got to like find a way to like get the light. And they're also completely hairless,
right,
so there's that aspect of it too. But
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, I do love the gold here with the blue. It's really nice.
thanks. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was like yeah.
This one, I really enjoy the lighting down here. It's really interesting.
Man, this is one of my favorite pictures I've ever taken. This place, yeah, the lighting in the foreground is from a laser pointer. I basically just like, I think this is like a 4 second exposure or so, and I would just like wave the laser pointer beam across the top. There's like some very tall grass, and so what you're seeing is like the bits of grass just picking up that laser pointer beam as it's going across,
Mm,
and so it has like a very kind of like magical look to it.
yeah, it does.
Um,
And what about the light
but that
inside?
property is wild. Yeah, so I put a flash with a red filter in the first floor and a flash with an orange filter in the second floor. And that property is wild. It's in a place called Osceola, Arkansas. And after I posted this, a woman who used to live there in the 90s messaged me, and she's like, "Hey, dude, that place is totally haunted. There's like
Uh,
a woman in like the late 1890s who threw herself from the balcony and committed suicide from the back, and like it's got like a really kind of like dark history. But in
wow.
the house, I got a really good vibe. I don't know, but yeah, it's a cool property.
Yeah, no, it's sick. It's one of my favorites. This one here. Are these
Thank
the
you.
props here again?
Yeah, those are
So
props
that
as
looks
well.
like
And I
real
had to,
feet.
And they look like real feet, right? Like I
Yeah.
had to go and this is one of those cases where in Photoshop I went in and like made the light right above those calves really dark so you couldn't tell that they just like ended.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, but yeah, they it looks like real feet, which is the funny thing is like last time I went to Arkansas, I had the cops called on me, and I nearly pulled out the limbs to use in the photo, and I'm so glad I didn't because I had to be like, officer, listen,
They would have brought you
when I
in for
come
sure.
back to this window, you're gonna see something you can't unsee.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
really funny. What is?
yeah.
Where is this? Is this a flash or is this some sort of spotlight here?
That's a flash with like a snoot on it, like a rubber snoot, just to kind of like direct it and make it like a lot more like contained. I was like off to like if you're like looking at the photo, that was off to the left.
Mm, that's cool. This one I really like too. I mean, I like all of
Yeah,
these.
this that was the same property. This photo took me forever. This was actually I took this at like midnight. That's a full moon. This is probably like a 10 or 12-second
Oh
exposure,
wow, this is at
and I
night.
this is a night. Yeah, this was the same location. That's the same RV as the previous picture with the legs in it. This property was fucked up, man. This is like it's probably a 5-minute drive from Johnny Cash's childhood home.
Cool.
It's just in this area called Dias, Arkansas, and it's just got a real bad vibe. The whole town does, and this property in particular, inside, just like it smelled. It was just so much black mold and flies in there. Just the whole property had this weird vibe, and I kept hearing this one frog, and when it would rivet, it sounded like it was saying "please." And the first time I heard it, I'm like out here by myself. There's no one around. It's probably 11:30 at night, and I think I hear somebody in my ear saying "please." I almost lost my
It
mind,
seems like
and
it
then I
would be
kept
that.
hearing it.
Yeah, it seems like it'd be that spot where you would probably hear that.
I know, right? Like, and I had like also inside this RV, there are all these pictures of like a kid's baseball team. Like, I think the dad was the coach or something. It was just, man, it was weird. Like, there's a lot of ways to interpret things that I saw, but this picture was like long exposure of the moon, and then getting a red flash up into that tree, using a yellow flash inside the cab of the RV, and then using the blue laser pointer on the front. It just kind of like it took me a long time to get the shot and just like playing around and it got so late and it was just I really liked the shot. It was like I hadn't done something this kind of like involved and it was a fun one for sure.
How about this one? This one's cool.
Yeah, that one, man, this is one of those where I was driving around in Arkansas. Um I was like losing light. I had not found anything. And it was like I've been driving around for like an hour and a half, and it's like I don't know. I try to keep an attitude of like easy come, easy go. If I drive around and don't find anything, it's fine. You'll find something again. But I was like driving around, didn't find anything, and then I was like, okay, let's just make it a challenge. Here's a telephone pole. Let's see if I can make a telephone pole interesting. And then this moon rose like right over it, and I was like, well, that's pretty sick. And it was super dusty that night. This was I forget what time of year it was, but there was a lot of like tractor like combine tractors
Mm.
harvesting and stuff, and they were kicking up a lot of dust. And so it was super dusty that night. And then I just like got my two laser pointers, like a red one and a blue one, and just started like painting the top of this pole. And it just like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, when I first took this shot, I didn't really like it. And I was like, it reminded me of something that I might do in high school. And then I showed my wife, and she's like, no, that's really cool. And so I was like, okay, we'll roll with it.
Yeah, that's really
It's
cool.
my wife has incredibly good taste, very
What
very
is
good
what does
taste.
your
And
wife do?
so
Is she also a photographer or?
she's a designer,
Okay.
and she's a designer. She's a sewist. She makes her own clothes. She does a lot of cool art projects on her own. She does what's it called? I'm forgetting the name now. Uh, I forget the type of art. She's gonna kill me later, but no, she's got extremely good taste. We actually met. We were in a band together years and years ago, and so she has great taste in art, great taste in music. And so typically when I like come back from a shoot, I'll like have like if I'm like stuck between two shots or something, I'll usually ask her, and she's like almost always right about which one is. Sorry, that's my dog. She's always right about which one is better, and so
Mm,
she's kind of like a good
yeah.
like if I'm ever like not sure, I rely on her
Right.
taste.
That's good to have. This one's cool too.
Yeah. Oh man, I love this one so much. This was I was just driving around a bunch of places that night. Did I get pulled over by the cops that night? I don't think I did. But there's this suburb way out east called Collierville, which is like the coppiest place in the world. And I was shooting this house there, and I was like, I gotta go because I know that somebody's gonna call the cops on me. And so I went to this other. I was just jumping around a lot of spots, and every time I found a spot, I was like, I'm gonna get the cops called on me because it's like a very like conservative area.
Mm.
And so this is in a park, and I was like pretty far away from the road, and I just started like messing around with this laser pointer and started doing like and just like, painting these lines on the trees, and it looked kind of photocopier to me, like a kind of scanner stuff, where it was just like, all blue light, and like, I
Uh-oh.
need
Sorry to interrupt you. Your
some
audio's
contrasting
kind of going in and out.
colors here, so like an orange
Uh-oh. Hey,
flash
your
in the
audio's
foreground.
cutting in and out.
And,
I'm not sure if you can hear me. Uh-oh. Did I
oh
lose
yeah,
you?
sorry. I was
Uh-oh. Hey, I think
okay.
I lost you.
I can hear you great. Can you hear me? Uh, ice, anyone maybe?
Uh, Hang on. Maybe,
Okay. Let me type in the chat.
oh wait, hang on. I hear you. I think we're good.
Oh, you hear me?
Yeah.
You're good? Okay.
Yeah, I think we're good. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good. Um, no, I was saying for this one, yeah, I think I was like painting a lot of blue light on the entire frame. And then it slowly morphed from there. It was like, blue light on its own was kind of boring. So I added kind of an orange flash to the foreground.
Mm.
That was a cool contrast. And then I felt like I needed like a focal point, and then I added this flashlight in the middle. And it was just kind of like balance. I played around with a bunch of these compositions and balancing the elements. And I just like kind of like the if you kind of like squint your eyes and just look at like
Yeah.
the ball of light in the middle and the blue on
I like
top,
I
it just
like
kind of has like
these
a
I
funky
like these two
balance.
lines here from like
Yeah,
yeah, it draws me in.
no, for sure. It's just kind of like a yeah, just I don't know. I think mostly it's like one of those intuitive processes where you play around for long enough and then you find something that you're like, this just it feels good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you gotta stumble around a bit sometimes.
Yeah,
This
absolutely.
is a great example of your laser.
Yeah, this was so this is one of the well, I was saying, I think I can remember like three times in the past couple of years when I've used a composite. This is one, but the composite I used was just the foreground with that blue, um, like the kind of like blue light in the very, very foregrounds. That was from an alternate shot. So I added that in,
Uh,
and then everything above that kind of blue bands on the bottom is all from another shot. But yeah, this was like just multiple flashes, just like an orange flash inside, a pink flash to one side, messing around with a laser pointer, and
how many
this was a crazy property too. Inside there were like all of these VHS what do you call it? Like a slip cover, but instead of having VHSs inside, they just had like blocks of styrofoam. So it was like all these classic, it was like Jurassic Park, Terminator 2, like all of these classic movies. And I was like, I'm about to haul like 50 VHS tapes out of here. But all of them were filled with styrofoam. And it was the most like, it was like this weird like simulation theory dead internet thing in real life where I was like, nothing is real.
It's
like,
really funny. Wait,
yeah.
so how many exposures does this usually take you to get like the shot that you're happy with?
Oh man, it's one of those things. Like, I once I find a composition I like, I will happily shoot it for an hour until like my batteries run out, and I'll just experiment. And it's one of those things where like, when I'm playing with a shot, there are shots like on the screen that I see, and I'm like, this is it. But then later, when I'm looking on my computer and everything's a little bit bigger, I have a totally different opinion. And so I'm typically wrong in the moment about which one I really like. And it takes me, I'll come back the next day and look at it on a larger screen. But for this one, I could have taken maybe like 100 exposures.
Really?
And
Wow.
yeah, it's about just like finding the one, like, yeah, I think like one of like the biggest things is like for like the stuff that I do is like editing and just sorry, not editing in the sense of Photoshop, but um, like filtering maybe, like
Mm.
filtering the results you get. If you get 100 shots, like really kind of like relying on your gut or your wife's gut.
Yeah.
Um,
So
Can
you
you hear
so
my
you,
dog barking, by the way?
yeah, it's fine though. So like you're
Let
at
me
a
close this door.
location. You're pretty much just at one location for like the day, really,
Um,
or the
you
night.
know, when I didn't have to drive out so far, like when I still had like not explored much around me, I would do like 2 or 3 locations in a night. But now it's one of those things where I feel really lucky if I find one good location in a night because I've got to drive like an hour to 2 hours to find something. So when I do find something, yeah, I'll stay there the entire night, and then I I typically take my time now. When I was first starting to do this again a couple of years ago, I would try to like iterate really quickly, and now I'll spend a lot of time to just like play and like really just have kind of a more relaxed attitude about it, I think.
That's probably the best way to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
makes sense to me. Here's another one of your fake appendages.
Yeah. See, you can see how kind of like rubbery his arm looks
Yeah,
in the light.
honestly, like I thought it might have been a real person until you mentioned it like earlier on, but now I definitely see.
Yeah. I mean, the veins look so
And the
real. Like
fingers.
it's and the fingers, yeah. Like it's but also like the weird way that the wrist is bending. Like I don't think anybody, it's
Yeah.
like with the weight of the flowers,
How was this like
like
attached? What was this attached to?
I have a tripod that's got like a boom arm on it,
Uh,
and I will like put the arm on there and wrap it in ace bandages. Um, just because you want something that's not gonna like like tape would maybe accidentally tear the skin off, you know?
mm,
And so like the ace bandages are a good way to like secure it without like doing any damage to
yeah,
it.
you don't want to tear the skin off.
And honestly, like people will drive by and I'm just like, it's gotta look weird, you know?
For sure.
It's gotta look weird.
I,
Yeah.
I I remember watching a video of you doing the lasers. You were like shooting it inside of the door. Is that
So this one was like, so inside the church there is a flash, like there's
oh
a red flash. And then I was doing some where I was shooting the laser in the door. And this one I was just kind of like dragging the laser out of frame in the foreground, so you just kind
uh
of get like that reddishness in the foreground. But this is another one I did. I started doing lives not too long ago, actually in preparation for this. When you were like, we need like if you could have some process stuff, that would be cool. So I guess that was like a few weeks ago or a month ago now. I started doing some lives and doing stuff, and it's been really fun because it's like yeah, it's a way to kind of just like sit with people and just kind of like do a weird thing with laser pointer. And yeah,
yeah. This is one of my favorites. So I,
thank you.
I
I appreciate
noticed
that.
I noticed that this is the only black and white one that you kind of sent. What's your thoughts on shooting color versus like black and white stuff?
Man, that's such a good question. I'm glad you asked. I was not interested in black and white when I got back into doing this. But what got me into it? There's a photographer named Mario Lasalandro, I believe is his name. He's an Italian photographer, and there's another person on Instagram I follow who's her handle is Kono Nakome. She's a Japanese photographer living in no, I'm sorry, she's a Chinese photographer living in Tokyo, and she started sharing this guy's work, Mario Lasalandra, and we've been geeking out about him for a bit now. And he kind of pulled me back into it, into wanting to do black and white because I was like really going through his work and like um, getting deep into it and like asking myself why I like it so much. And I think it's because like his philosophy of black and white, which I've adopted as my own, is like to make the subject the brightest thing in the frame, like to even almost like blow out the highlights in the subject,
Mm-mm.
and everything else should be darker than it. Which to me makes intuitive sense
Yeah.
because your eye is drawn to the brightest thing in the frame, and uh, and so yeah, so I love that philosophy of just making the subject the brightest thing,
I mean, we
and
see we
then
see things more clearly and more contrast.
yes, exactly. And you see, I'll see black and white photographs, and it's like the sky is blown out, or the sky is the brightest thing, and the subject is kind of mid-toned. And once I started looking at Mario Lasalandro's work, I was like, it was like Matrix code. I was like, okay, I see why this black and white works, and like other things that I've seen don't work for me as well. And so for this one, it was a matter of like I got a polarizer filter and a red filter to really make the sky as dark as possible. This was taken at sunset, so like that you can imagine that field was like really like orangey sunset light,
Mm.
and the cloud was really orangey sunset light. And then I used red filter and polarizer, which for one made the field and the cloud much brighter. The sky, for two, made the sky much darker. And then the tree line was dark to begin with, but I did darken it even a little bit more in Lightroom just because I really wanted it to look like.
Mm.
I also like, I know you know like the Ansel Adams zone theory stuff about like,
Yeah,
like
he was a big influence on me earlier on.
absolutely, yeah, like as he should be. And with his stuff, I totally believe in his like black and white philosophy that you want to try to capture the whole gamut of
Mm.
tonality of value in there. And while I don't think it's necessary to get like every single zone in a photo, like in this one I haven't, like, it's pretty much like four zones. I do think that like getting a darkest and a brightest and then like a couple midtones makes for some really good contrast. And so
Mm.
yeah, this is like the only black and white I've taken so far that I really like. It's hard to find the subjects for it, honestly. Like it's like I don't know. I'm here to take black and white photos, but I just like so rarely find something that I'm
Yeah,
like that would look good in black and white.
this could be a series of itself, like cloud, like
Yeah,
landscape stuff like this. I think that would be a interesting series for you to consider doing.
yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. It's like I was so south of me in Mississippi. There's this semi-new windmill farm. There's like 50 windmills down there, and really gorgeous area just to drive around and it's all open land too. So I was there to shoot windmills, but then towards the end of the day I just saw this like one single cloud and it was just like this perfectly framed shot. And so it's one of those kind of like
Mm.
right place, right time things where, like I would love to do a series of these, but I think it's just like finding the cloud. You
Yeah,
know what I
call
mean?
it the
Like, yeah.
solo clouds.
I know. It's like it's honestly like kind of hard to find.
Yeah. This one is just crazy colors here and saturation. It's not like
Yeah.
oversaturation, but it's just the green, the pink, and this blue here. It's
Yeah.
like poof, right in your face.
No, thank you. I love this photo.
Yeah.
This one is like this one is like kind of like leaning really heavily on this sense of like I do a lot of like collage and I do a little bit of abstract painting. Like it's just kind of like a side creative endeavor. And this was kind of like you know, I think if you're coming at this from like a photography standpoint, there's no reason to add light to that top corner where the blue square is because it's like not the
Distracting.
subject, it's the background. There's no interesting information. Like there's nothing narrative going on there, but it's like with stuff like this, I'm not trying to do anything narrative. I'm more just trying to find like that sort of like abstract composition. I'm focused on like color and balance and things like
Yeah,
that. Like that's way more
contrast
important
and
to me than
space.
totally. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
And that
good.
one I really like. That one's weird. Yeah.
This one I love. Love the tires.
Yeah,
Such a
that was
spooky feeling. This feels so far away.
yeah,
Was this like a
that was
tilt shift
actually
lens?
no, that was no, that's such a good question. That was actually like standing at that tree house in the previous picture, you turn around and this is there. This is at the same property. So this is also a spooky place. So that was like I was pretty low to the ground, aimed up at the tree, and it was just by nature of like tilting the camera in such a way that like it looked bad. So in Lightroom, I did a little bit of geometry correction where like it was tilted a little bit more, and I tilted it actually a little bit less to make it look not so like V-shaped, I guess. But it does still look like weird.
Yeah,
But I
it
like that
looks
about
it
us.
looks AI in a way, just because of the scaling
Yeah,
of this tire
yeah.
versus like I don't know, it just looks funky. It's awesome.
Yeah, and that's also like, I used a and this is an example of like changing the tones up. I used a red flash on the branches and then a white flash on that tire just to catch the side of it and
Behind,
outline
it
it
looks like it's coming from behind.
behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's behind the tree actually pointed at the tire. And then in Lightroom, I shifted the red branches to more of kind of like an amberish orange color and then the sky to like a much more like blue. And yeah, it's a weird image for sure.
Yeah. It's probably my other favorite aside from,
Cool, yeah.
let's see, that one's my favorite. This one's a favorite. This one,
Awesome. Yeah.
this one, and
Oh, we haven't talked about that one yet. Yeah.
probably this one. But
Cool. That's awesome. Honestly, we're aligned in a lot of those.
yeah.
It's
What was
it's
so
cool to
tell
hear.
me about this one real quick.
Dude, this one was so that barn, it was on a guy's property, ended up, like driving to his house just to be like can I shoot here? Super nice guy. His name was Sylvester. He's got a cute dog. And he was like, yeah, this barn. He's like, I've lived here for 5 years. This barn was built like before FDR's inauguration. And he was telling me about it. And
Wow.
he's really kept it in good condition. Like most of the barns in this area, the wooden ones have just completely collapsed. And the owners have just like maintained this thing and they don't even use it. Like it's just driving by the road and it's just like this gorgeously preserved barn. And but he was such a cool guy. He like came over with me when I set up my lights, was talking to me about it, just super nice. But yeah, this picture was I used a red flash with barn doors on the barn, and I used the barn doors on the top to get that kind of natural gradient on it, so it fades from like red to black. I love that look.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then inside the barn, I had a flash of the blue filter, and I pushed the flash all the way up to the ceiling and angled down, so you would get that really defined
Mm.
outline of the window on the grass. And then the tree, I think this was like maybe like a 6 second exposure or something. The tree I just like painted with a laser pointer light. And because I knew like with this, I liked the composition. If you can imagine this composition without the laser pointer light, I was like, I've got the barn, I've got the tree, I've got the window light, there's some good balance, but I knew I needed like some other color going on in the tree to make it feel complete. And so I played around with the blue laser pointer, looked like garbage, and then I did probably like maybe 20 or 30 shots with this red one, just playing around with different types of like patterns and different ways of coloring the tree and things um and it was like the next day when I went back and looked and I liked how it has this kind of like tail leading off,
Yeah, I was
which
gonna
to me
say,
feels really kind of like
was this deliberate?
it was one of those things where I don't know if it was deliberate. I think it was like I
Happy
had like
mistake?
finished it and was pulling it down, or it could have been deliberate. I honestly don't remember, but it was one of those things. The next day, it just felt like this one felt like kind of like whimsical to me. It kind of felt like coloring a little bit
Yeah.
and like actually drawing on it, and I just really like that. It kind of gave it just like some of the other ones were. I feel like without that little tail seems maybe a
Mm-hmm.
bit more serious,
Right.
and this one with that little tail seems a little bit more playful, and I like that
Yes.
about it.
Yes, exactly. I think that's a good uh thing to keep in mind for your work is to keep it playful. And I mean
Yeah, for
obviously they
sure.
are, but
Yeah,
I do enjoy this one. I especially love the cyan blues with the red and what you were saying about the roof here, this like gradient. It's
yeah.
it's nice, dude. Like it's a really great photograph.
I appreciate that. I honestly, I really love this photo, and it's one of those like you have like your the ones that like you personally love so much, and you get thrilled when people like them too. And I like this is one of those where like yeah, like whenever anybody says they like this, I'm like fuck yeah, it makes me very
Do you
happy.
have any of these printed?
This one in particular, no, um, no, I don't, but I could totally do that.
Do you print your own work by chance?
No, I use a place called White House Custom Color. It's
Hmm.
actually like the place that we used to use back when I was shooting wedding photography,
Hmm.
and they just do fantastic work. I think they're based in Minnesota. They just do absolutely incredible work. And yeah, I printed on aquarelle paper, so it's got this really great. It's just so vibrant. Like the colors are so nice, and it's just. They also have like a 2 day turnaround time. They're just an awesome
Hmm.
company.
Send me a link. I'm curious to check them out.
Yeah, yeah, I will. I will for sure.
Hmm. Okay. Well, we're past a little bit past an hour now. Hour and 5 minutes. Time flew by
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
quick.
Yeah, it really did.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Um, let's see. Mm,
Yeah, if you have any other questions, let me know. It's honestly kind of a light morning at work, so I'm not like,
yeah. Um,
yeah.
any other projects coming up, or are you traveling anywhere soon?
That's a good question. I've got a bunch of little projects that I'm like excited about, and it's one of those things where, like we talked earlier, uh, sometimes having a project or a thing in mind can hem you in.
Mm.
But I think that like there are other times when having an idea of a project can lead you to just exploring something, even if you like the thing that you're conceiving in the beginning. If that doesn't bear out, that can still lead you to interesting places, like kind of like the germ of an idea. So I do want to do more stuff with this Rico, this kind of
Yeah.
tortured Rico. And I do want to kind of do a project about kind of like nostalgia and the neighborhood where I grew up in. We'll see if that actually works out or not.
Yeah.
And then I've got some more. collage and painting projects I want to do, and I I want to start doing music as well. I used to be in a band forever ago, and
What do you play by chance? I never asked.
I started playing guitar, and then I learned drums, and now I play a lot of bass
I was gonna
now.
say you look like
Bass
a
is the
bass
last
player.
thing I started learning. Oh, okay. I honestly, bass is my favorite. It's so
Do you
fun.
play like a grabber or something? Like what do you play bass wise?
No, I play a Squire. Like it's not a very good one. I got this Squire on eBay, and it's a beautiful color. But it's why every time I get a new instrument, I'm like I got to start off really small because I can't like I might not like it.
Yeah.
Like I played drums for a while, and I got like the cheapest electric kit you can get. And I love drums for a bit, but now I think I'm kind of over it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's cool. Well,
yeah,
keep me posted on that new stuff. Maybe we can
yeah.
do like a little feature or something later
That
or
would be awesome. Oh, also, I totally forgot. I the biggest project is that I have an idea for a book. Like
ah,
so I have my MFA is in writing, and I haven't done much with it recently, but I do have an idea for a photo slash very short prose snippets. Yeah, so I'm working on that, and that'll be all the stuff that we've talked about, all of those photos, and kind of like looking back at this period of illness in my life, and kind of like writing about those things. So I don't have enough material for it yet, but that's kind of like the big thing that I feel like I'm kind of like slowly building up towards.
yeah. Good work takes
Yeah,
time.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's one of those things. Like if it takes me another year to get all the materials together, it is what it is. I'm not like in a rush or anything.
Yeah. You gotta follow the process. Well, this was fun, dude.
Yeah,
I'm
for
glad
sure.
that we got to do
Yeah,
this. And this was like my first
yes.
time like doing this kind of thing. So I apologize for like all the
Dude, you did a
crackles and
fantastic job. So I gotta praise you for a few things. One, doing a fantastic job with this, finding all the materials, finding the program, and being like an editor on the fly. Two, being so flexible. I bailed on you like multiple times last week, and you were so nice and so flexible about it, and I really appreciate it. And three, also being a great photographer and artist, and like having that background to be able
thank
to like
you.
have these interviews is really important. I think like
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like you understand in a way that other interviewers might not.
Thank you. I like that. That means a lot, dude. Cool.
Yeah.
Um, where can people find you?
Instagram, my handle is at Gardner_Mounce,
Yeah.
Gardner_Mounce. And then my website, which you can find through Instagram. And I'm on Threads too, but I feel like Threads is like,
It's fading quick, I
yeah,
think.
I know. Yeah, it's like, it's a cool
You gotta come to
platform, but
Noster, man.
okay, I'll come to the Noster. Yeah, I've seen you talk about that, and I started a Substack too, but I'm not really
Ah,
sure how it works yet. So I follow you on Substack, and I follow like two other people, so I get your updates. But yeah, I need to like plug in more.
cool. Yeah, Substack's an interesting place. I think it's a good place to be. Your video is kind of glitching
Yeah.
out too right now, so this is probably
Uh,
like a good time to.
yeah, maybe a good place.
All right, brother. Well, this was really
Sweet.
cool.
All right, man.
I'll send you this file when I have it all kind of like cut up and
Awesome.
fixed.
That sounds great.
All right, brother. See you.